my voice really from the past and what my history looks like. I grew up in a household where we learned Black history and understood the struggle that African Americans went through in our nation's history. And I saw this, and I saw that with a single voice, change was made, with people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, but even deeper than that, people like Huey Newton and Fred Hampton and Angela Davis. I saw these icons leading the way with their voice. These people didn't have thousands of dollars. These people didn't always wear fanciest of suits. These people didn't live in overly lavish homes. These people were regular people who saw an injustice and decided to say something against it. And with that, I saw this, and then I saw an injustice myself. And these two things combined forced me to use my voice. I saw there was a problem, and I couldn't sit silent any longer. I couldn't just let it pass by me like I saw the rest of the world do. And after that first Child Abuse Awareness March, and after that first speech, something just clicked in me, and it was a fire that was just lit automatically. And it was something that I couldn't ignore. And it was a passion that followed me everywhere I went. And so after learning about my history, learning about what I could do, and after seeing something that had to be done, plus the ability to do it, I think that all those things combined just led me to finding a very passionate voice. A lot of my confidence from the people around me. I get it from people like my mom and my siblings, my family and my friends, who are just all people that continue to say that you can do it. I think we really have begun to understanding that our words have so much power. And so with me going to school or coming home every day and every night, and hearing my teacher saying that you can do anything you set your mind to, and hearing my mom said that you got it, just take your seat at the table. I think those are things that really boosted my confidence. Recently, I got the chance to attend General Assembly, and I had to wake up at 5:55 in the morning, which is not something I usually do as a student. And I was tired. The morning started off a little rocky, things were a little rough. I had a meeting at 7:05, and we got to this building, the Pocahontas building, at around 6:30-ish. And my mom, right as I got out of the car, of course it was on I love you, but more importantly, she said, take your seat at the table. And I think so often we hear bring yours, and to know that there was already a seat there waiting for me and for our young people, I think that really just showed me that, I got this, I can do it. And so I get a lot of my confidence from my friends and my family, and especially my mom. But I think I also get a lot of my influence, like I said earlier, from the past. I get a lot of my passion and my style and speech and developing those things from people like John Lewis and Fred Hampton, who are two of my personal heroes, more specifically John Lewis, just because he has influenced me so dramatically that I want to go into legislation like he did, but more importantly, I want to continue to be an activist. I think he was very much a voice for the voiceless, a mouthpiece for the poor and for the forsaken, the forgotten by our society. And he is someone that has continued to show me things. And even in his passing, every single time I learn something new about him, I think there's a new lesson that comes with it, whether it's having faith that change can come, or having hope that our generation can do it, whether it is trusting in ourselves to battle any giant that is set in our way, and things like that. So I think that when I look at my confidence, it definitely comes from my mom. But when I think that I look at my influencers, it definitely comes from our past and showing me that there are things that we have done and there are things that we can continue to do. But to paraphrase a quote by Marcus Garvey, by understanding what we have done and to understand our past, a lot of our future can be shaped. So important to be an advocate for our young people. And I really couldn't stress this enough. I think our young people, we are oftentimes left out and forgotten, like I said previously, by the rest of society, simply because we can't vote and we don't go into drafts and we don't have a lot of the constitutional rights because we're not necessarily 18 yet. And I think that for too long, just because we can't do those things, we've oftentimes been left out of the conversation completely. And this especially matters when those conversations are about things that include us. We really started to have a lot of gun conversations after things like Parkland and Columbine and Sandy Hook, and really every school shooting in American history. However, as we look to those times, rarely do we see our legislators and people who are in those high places bringing our young people. And so, of course, we've had those prominent young activists, but they've had to push themselves to the front, and oftentimes stepping on many toes and hurting a lot of feelings, only creating more stigma around it. So I think that it is so important because oftentimes we don't have that voice. We don't have that position of power. We don't have that. And we often really can't achieve it. As a 14-year-old, I can't run for office. And especially I can't really run for my school board, even though I know what my school needs most. So while this is a battle that we have been fighting for so long, and while we will continue to fight it, it is absolutely crucial that right now we're taking the time to be those advocates. And this goes to young people and adults, is that we need everyone to step up to the plate. And so when we are having conversations about funding our schools, then we need to be able to go to our students and ask how this is impacting them. When we're having conversations about what is being taught, then we need to be able to go to our students and ask them their opinions on these things, because they're the ones being taught. They're the ones going to these underfunded schools. And so I think there's a lot of importance in not only being a youth advocate, but also being an advocate for you, because we are oftentimes left out. And for that reason, we're going to have to fight harder. But also that means that our opinion and our voice is that much more important. Number one concern for Virginia's youth is that we are going to continue to live in a world that doesn't hear us. I think there's a lot of divide right now in every field where we're looking at politics, especially, and where we're looking at change, honestly. Whether it is, within the legislative system with difference in politics, or whether we look in our communities, or whether people don't know what to fight for. There are so many pressing issues, from climate change to racial injustice to mass incarceration to redlining, gender discrimination, homophobia, and the list goes on. So I think there is so much divide that when we listen to our youth, right, these are not messages of divide that our youth are telling us. They're telling us to unite. They're telling us that we need to focus on something. We need to fight hard for it. And we can't continue to do it in little pods. We can't continue to do it individually, because as we look to it, right, Fred Hampton was not just Fred Hampton. He was the Chicago Black Panther Party. He had people behind him. He had the Rainbow Coalition behind him. John Lewis was not just John Lewis. He had Martin King Jr. behind him. He had the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee behind him. He had numerous activists behind them. And I think that's the message that our young people are sharing. So I think no matter what our opinion is, no matter what aisle we stand, no matter what side of the aisle we stand on, I think the most important and honestly pressing issue right now in Virginia regarding our youth is that we're not being heard. No one really seems to care about the voice that we have, which is why, again, it is more important forever for our young people to rise to the occasion, take that position, and understanding that we do have a place at that table. We do have a seat. We do have valid and recognizable opinions, and we need to share them, because the change that we seek in whatever field that is, it is not going to come unless we decide to build a future that is prepared to make it. For us to be able to make sure that every single young person is thriving in Virginia, we need to be able to get to a place where in our school systems especially, because we can put as many programs in our churches, we can put as many programs in the YMCA as we want. However, we don't have half as many kids go into those places as they do when they come to our schools. So I think by putting programs in our schools that have advocacy days, that have those field trips to General Assembly, and they do things like that instead of those meeting with legislators and members of our General Assembly, I think that is really trying to get there to where our youth are being heard. I think that the ideal world is that there would be a day during session or a day during the summer or something like that, where we could have youth all come together and we could have them talk to our legislators about things that matter to them, or really in any system that looks like. So I think the main thing, and really to create a Virginia where our young people are thriving, I think we also have to be able to get to a place where our young people are firstly being heard. And then once we get there, we can get to a place where our young people have those fully funded schools, where our young people do not feel excluded because of their gender or sexual orientation or because of their race. We can get to a spot where every single young person has the means and accessibilities to vote, no matter where you live or no matter what you look like, right? Or even if our young people have the necessities to be able to log onto the internet, whether it is for schooling or for finding jobs. So in a world where we as young people thrive, it is a world where we all have that equal opportunity, but that opportunity is sufficient enough for us to be successful in our future lives. But I think for us to get there, we need to be able to first implement programs but also make our young people our first priority, which is something that is incredibly hard for a country like our nation, because there's so many things going on. There's so many things surrounding us. So for us to make our young people a priority is difficult. However, it is necessary. And I think that those two oftentimes go hand in hand. Down to my personal aspirations, I always want to remain a community activist. I have found so much power and just so much joy in rallying our members of our community and really fighting for that when it comes down to really our grassroots kind of areas. So no matter what I continue on and no matter what I do, I want to remain a community activist. However, I definitely want to grow up. I definitely want to go to college, hopefully college like Yale specifically. And then I want to study political science, minor in something like African American or gender studies, just so I can continue to collect that knowledge. I think that in the course of my activism, I've become somewhat knowledgeable of the past and the discriminatory practices that minorities across America face. However, there's also this constant need for more and more and more, something that hopefully can be filled by a college course. So I want to minor in some form of minority studies. And then I want to go into law, study law, practice, and then go on to become probably a school board member and then rise up to the ranks until I am a congressman, either a senator or representative. From there, I don't know exactly what I want to do. I think we've been talking about, and I've been thinking about more likely is becoming president or running for it at least and things like that. But I think at the end of the day, as I grow older, my priorities continue to remain the same. And even as I get older and I receive more popularity and I receive higher places within the kind of social hierarchy of what Virginia is, I always want to find someone that was me 2 years ago. I always want to find that little kid that is trying to do something, has that one event, but wants that one event to become 30. And so, and not because they want money, not because they want fame, not because they want glory, but simply because they want change. And so as I grow older, I definitely want to have those kind of personal things. But all in all, I also want to be able to see our younger generations, not only Gen Z, but all of them after that, to really rise to the occasion. And I plan on helping them in any way that I possibly can. Advocacy about 5 years ago now, and I have grown so much in that time, and not just in my height, because I've hit so many growth spurts that it's absolutely baffling to me. There's nothing that has explained or ever will explain the life that is teenagers, honestly. And so I've grown so much physically, but I've also grown a lot mentally. I've grown a lot emotionally, and I've learned so many valuable lessons through all that time. But I think the most powerful one that I'll ever know is that there are going to be times where you fail. There are going to be times where you want to give up. And even now, today, I remain a perfectionist. So this is extremely crucial, probably, again, even now. So you are going to fail. You're going to have times where you want to give up. There are going to be times where you fall. There are going to be times where people don't respond to your emails. There are going to be times where legislators can't talk to you. There are going to be times where legislators don't want to talk to you. There are going to be times where no one comes to your marches. However, there are going to also be times when over 450 people come to your marches. There are going to be times where legislators want to not only talk to you, but have you testify for those bills that they are championing. So while there are going to be lows and while there are going to be valleys, there are also going to be highs. There are going to be mountains that once you get to the top, you're going to feel so good. And it is crucial that you hang on to that. It is so important that you hang on to that joy and to that feeling of empowerment, and you carry that with you throughout your entire life, knowing that it's not always going to be easy. No one said it was going to be easy. However, what I can promise you is that it will always be worth it. And even if you don't see it in your time, when we look to a lot of our historical leaders, a lot of people didn't. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, unfortunately, didn't get to see the moment where women were allowed to vote. Harriet Tubman didn't get to see the point where every single person was, again, allowed to vote. So there's so many times where we're always not going to be able to see the outcome of our work. However, to know that it is going to exist, I think that's something that I really want to just tell my younger self, but also tell everyone who is growing up in a world that feels so scary and sometimes feels really divisive, that you're going to make it through. And you're going to have those lows, but you're also going to have some highs, and you are going to overcome.